Welcome back to the show, everybody. We have a longtime friend of mine, somebody I grew up with, childhood friend from Canada, central Canada at that, Manitoba, a pioneer for our zone in kind of breaking the norm for living in Winnipeg and kind of shaping what we all thought was impossible, which was leave Winnipeg and venture out west to snowboard. We have Kevin Griffin on the podcast. What's up, boss?
You.
Hey, bro. Good to see you, my man.
Yeah, you too.
Fucking rights, Griff. It's good to have you on the podcast. Griff is all the way in Indonesia right now, where he's been residing for the last bit, and his Wi-Fi is phenomenal. What's it been like in Bali? What's the day-to-day scoop for you? What does a normal day in Indonesia look like for Griff?
I wake up about an hour before sunrise. I drink about 5 coffee.
Chris Duffy styles.
Yeah. And then I go surfing. I go surfing almost every day, like sunrise, first light. And I'd come home, have more coffee. Usually try to take the dogs to the river. I got a river really close to my place, can just walk.
Damn.
And I get about 8 months ago, I started shaping surfboards. So I spend most of my time that I'm not surfing, I'm shaping.
Wow, what a hobby that must be.
And then I have a million things to do at the house. Like I see, I started like 3 years ago. I built my own house, and it's like I never built anything in my life, like not even a fucking tree fort, And I was like, oh, one brick at a time. And then after about a year and a half, I'm just like throwing bricks, like, fuck this. So then I got it just to the point that it was livable. It like literally like drove me into depression. And I just stopped and I just lived in it. And I did nothing for like a year. I got a new girlfriend at that time, so I just spent a lot of time with her. And now I'm just starting to like get back on it and start finishing the place, like painting stuff. But like I have like endless maintenance and repairs that I have to do. Like my roof's leaking. Like,
well, you guys get a different type of rain there. I've actually been to Bali to visit you probably 4 or 5 years ago now, and some of the rainstorms you guys get there are out of a movie. So I'm imagining if your place wasn't fully done, of course you're gonna get like driven into a depression. It's like if it starts raining there, it's like, and it's the house isn't fully done, you must have been having a few damp sleeps, I'm assuming.
Oh, it's like when I was laying my foundation, and so I had this thing when I started. I was like, I'm going to do the whole thing without power tools.
Organic styles.
Yeah. And then it got to, so I'm like, I'm mixing all my concrete by hand in a wheelbarrow.
Yes.
So then it's time to do my foundation. And originally I was just going to make a tiny home. And then after about a week of laying stones for like the perimeter of the foundation, I'm like, oh, this is easy. I'm going to make it bigger. So I found like the footprint of my house is 6 meters by 9 meters. And like that's a lot of concrete, man.
Yeah, you're not getting a truck to just back in and dump the whole thing and then he's done.
No. Like halfway through the first day, and this is in the middle of dry season, it just starts raining. So it just destroyed my foundation. And I had this happen 3 days in a row. Like, oh, in the middle of dry season.
So that must have sucked. That must have just been like the worst feeling ever. You spend all this money, you finally have it all set up, and then it just get monsoons for 3 days in dry season. Are you kidding me? Damn.
And I have like 15 locals gathered at the far end of my property for months, just watching me, because they're in shock. They're like, oh, white guy doing stuff. This is crazy.
Idiot.
And then
Doing it so wrong.
yeah, like everything that could go wrong would go wrong. And they're over there at the corner of the property laughing. And like it's all good for the first week, but like, yeah, I'm throwing rocks at them after a month.
You're like, stop staring at me, bro. Come over here and help me or get out of here.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go to your house and just stare at you for a month.
Yeah.
Call the police.
Where are you located in Bali? Because I feel like a lot of people venture out there. Bali's a pretty big island. I feel like most people just go to the same spot. Where are you located on the island?
I'm about as far north up the west coast as anybody would go surf wise. The area is called Medewi.
Oh, okay. Sick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty well known wave. It's said to be the longest left hand point break in Bali.
And is it your favorite wave?
It would be my go to. Like it's the most consistent. Yeah, I'm not gonna say how like good it is, because then more,
Yeah, it sucks. Don't go there.
Yeah, I don't want to come in here. But there's a lot of other waves around here that nobody surfs. Like, yeah, at times it almost get lonely. Like you're stoked when 3 people paddle out.
Do you have a lot of days where you just know so many good waves that you're just out there alone sessioning like a solo wave?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that can happen every day if you want.
Dang. I mean, yeah, you're kind of an adventurer. I know you really well, and you're not one to just ride the same wave. You're going to go on some adventures to find like the next good wave. And do you have like an adventure buddy that you're going out with every day, or a lot of these solo missions?
No, it's just solo.
No way. That's like, do you enjoy that, or do you kind of wish that you had a few buds to do it with?
They both kind of have their pros and cons. Like, there's been people that I've taken like on missions to go find waves, but like surfers are just sheep. Like if there isn't a surf report for that wave, it doesn't exist.
So they just go to the one spot that they know works.
Yeah, and like to go on a mission to look for a wave, like nobody wants to do that, because odds are you're not going to find a good wave.
Oh, I get it now. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, like what a waste of time.
Yeah, especially if it's a good day and it's like, you're getting some glassy tubes in Medewi. Is that how you say it? Medewi?
Something like that.
Something like that. Oh man, that's sick though. I'm psyched that you're just getting barreled every single day. Let's bring this back though to a little bit more of where you came from. What was childlike for you? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, well, until middle school, that would be like grade 6. I think I went to like 12 or 13 different schools. Like we just bounced all over the place. Started in Winnipeg, like lived in a bunch of little towns in Alberta. Actually did like a few years in Vancouver. I think I was like maybe grade 2, grade 3. We lived in Surrey. in Vancouver. That's like a really, really bad area.
No way, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I think we were in White Rock for a little bit. We were in Delta. This little town called Longview in Alberta. It's like a town of like 500 people. Lots of little country towns. And then middle school, my mom knew that she wanted to get settled somewhere so I could be in the same place for my older years in school. So that was in Winnipeg. We lived in St. James.
Okay.
And yeah, just stayed put there and did the rest of the years there.
Did you, when you were traveling and moving around a lot, did you find that really frustrating, or at one point did you just kind of think that that was just normal and you were used to it, or were you always like agitated with the next move?
No, I think I just thought it was normal. Yeah, like I was just a kid, and my mom was awesome, like constantly entertaining, and had me in like every sport, and it made me really good at making new friends, like being the new kid like 3 times a year. It's like the first couple times it's like a little stressful, but like eventually I just got used to it.
And where did you find a skateboard or a snowboard? Where did you pick up these things when you were younger and ping ponging around, or when you first settled down, you were like skateboard, snowboard?
Yeah, skateboarding. I started both pretty late. Like in grade 8, we actually moved from like one area of St. James to the other area. So I had to go to a new school for grade 8. And I actually got bullied really bad in grade 8. There was these 3 like proper Nazi kids, like had like swastikas and everything. And one of them is like girl that he likes, or like was just like claiming that it's his girlfriend, but it wasn't. She was like the cool, cute girl in all of grade 8, and she was really sweet to me, and it just made them jealous. So they just started bullying me, calling me gay boy.
Oh way.
Yeah, really like
Dated term and gnarly.
yeah, nice one, Nazi kids.
Yeah. Wow. Jesus.
But
That must have had
they
like a profound impact on your life. Like
oh,
getting bullied a lot in a young grade, like grade 8, that kind of like that's heavy, dude.
so they were also like the cool like skateboarder kids in our school.
The Nazi
Um,
dudes.
the Nazi dudes.
Damn. Making me
Yeah.
so sad.
But yeah, they bullied me so bad that I just stopped going to class, and then my grades slipped, and I ended up actually failing grade 8 that year because I wouldn't go to class. So then the following year, my mom put me in a different school, and there was a lot of kids that skateboarded there. So that's when I started skateboarding. I was kind of like, I was motivated to get good at skateboarding because of the Nazi kids, because they were like the cool skateboarders. And we had
Damn.
this like,
That like sucks, but it's like awesome at the same time.
yeah, there's like literally like every night at either Safeway or Superstore, there would be like 150 skateboarders. Like the skates team would be there, like Crawley and McDermott, and like it was like a big thing. Like all the skateboarders in the city would flock to St. James and skate at Safeway or Superstore.
And set up like
And
ramps and stuff like that, or just skate?
no, just skate like mani pads and like do tricks over curbs. And
Sick.
it's like this is like before skate parks, right? Like skate parks were just like bowls and transition at this point. Like there's no like plazas or anything like that. This is like 96 or 97 or something.
Cool, dude. The Crawley
And then
plug was rad.
the Nazi kids were there, and I was just like, oh fuck, like I got to get better than the Nazi kids. So I just skated like hard on my own, and that following summer, I met Jordan Buckles, who is like the most diehard skateboarder kid. He's from a different area. It's called Tuxedo, and like went to this private school. He's like from like the rich kid area. So it's kind of weird that we even became friends, but we just immediately hit it off. And then we met. Here's a funny Jeeves story. We met Jeeves that summer. So he's like, I think he's only like 10 years old or something. And there's an indoor skate park. It's at an indoor hockey rink, and they just set up ramps for the summer. And me and Jordan are going there every day. And this little ginger kid rocks up with orange pads, like shin pads, knee pads, elbow pads, like fully padded, pushing Mongo. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, pushing Mongo, just like not really doing anything, but like pushing around the skate park really fast. And me and Jordan were just like, this kid's hilarious. Like he's going off like there's launch ramps, and he's just going like fucking 40K into these launch ramps. Like just getting smoked, like lands on his knee pads, like and slides on his knee pads, like, and then he's trying to like bro down with me and Jordan, and he's asking us like, what should I do? What should I hit? And I just look at the big quarter pipe. It's like, I don't know, it's like an 8-foot quarter pipe, and I'm like, you should ollie off the side of the quarter pipe.
The flat.
Yeah, just the flat, like.
Pads on.
Yeah. I'm like, you got pads, you'll be fine. So yeah, then he just starts flying off the side of the quarter pipe, and me and Jordan are just laughing. Like, there's no way he's going to be able to land off an 8-foot quarter pipe. And after maybe like 2 hours, he stomps it, and he's like looking around, like just so stoked. Me and Jordan both act like we didn't see. And yeah, from then on, he just like tailgated us, and maybe like a year later, he was just absolutely ripping. Like, I think when he was maybe like 12 years old, he had to be one of the best 12-year-old skateboarders on the planet. Like, this is like before like Bastian Salabanzi time, but like Jeeves was fucking good when he was a kid, man.
I remember those old skate parts.
Yeah, like he's getting like clips in like an adult like proper movie when he's like 12 years old or something.
Oh yeah, like the Woodsworth, the backside 180, and even just the classic, the switchback heel. I remember he
Yeah.
came on MSN because I had met him at riding our local hill at this point, and he came home and he hit me up on MSN, and he was just like, we were chatting back and forth. He was probably sending me music to listen to, like, you should listen to MF Doom. And I'm like, I don't know, like a Mexican rapper named Woody. And he said, we'd go back and forth. And he told me he got switchback heel on Woodsworth. And I remember just being like, I'm like, I don't know. At this point, I'm still doing like really whack tricks. Like I'm doing like kickflip sex changes, because you know what I mean? Like, I like do not have this shit dialed. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not pushing Mongo and I have like some basic tricks, but like when Jeeves told me he switchback heeled Woodsworth and then that part came out, for you to see that growth from being launch ramp ollie orange pads to, you know, I love that you plugged that as being like, because I thought the same thing when he was 12. And I think a lot of people who were skating in Winnipeg at that point, including like Crawley and McDermott and the Skates team, probably witnessed that. And for you hanging out with them full time with Buckles, that must have been wild.
Like, for like, if you're not from Winnipeg and you weren't a skateboarder, you don't know, but like Woodsworth was like the famous spot. It's like a 9 or 10 stair. It's got a perfect handrail down the middle. It's like the staple stair set. And in that time, Andrew, that switchback heel down Woodsworth was by far the hardest trick to go down that set, period. And he's a fucking 12-year-old kid, man. Like
Yeah,
at that time,
that could have been in anyone's part at that point. Like a pro would have used that clip.
Oh, like even like a proper, like a full-on pro skateboarder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, like P-Rod would have had that in his part. He would have been like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, like it's a 10 stair with a shitty landing as well. Like, oh yeah, so then that following winter, me and Andrew are hanging out like almost every day. I got sponsored. So before skate, Borders Anonymous was the shit. At that time,
Borders Anonymous is a skate shop for the people that don't know. Skates is a skate shop, and then Borders Anonymous is another local skate shop, both from Winnipeg. And just to give people some context.
Like Mike McDermott, Jason Crawley, Paul Spencer, like all the Rod Ferentz, like all the best skateboarders from Winnipeg rode for Borders Anonymous prior to going to skate. Because the manager, Ryan McWigan, he's a filmer. He made the 5'12" movies, if anybody's heard of them. Where am I going with this?
I don't know.
Yeah, so I got sponsored by Borders Anonymous for skateboarding the end of that summer. So we just spent a lot of time in there. And my birthday was like November 26th. And he gave me 2 VHS movies for my birthday. One was the Tampa Am contest VHS, and the other one was Little Bastards. So this is in '99, and he goes to give me Little Bastards, and he like puts it in my hand, but then pulls it back, and he's like, "Listen, kid, this is the shit." And I'm like, okay. And he's like, "No, this is the shit." Like, he's fucking hypes it up. He's like, "Okay, you go home, you call up little Jeevesy, and you and little Jeevesy watch this." So I go home, I call Jeeves. No, I talk to Jeeves's dad, and I make up some story about why Andrew has to sleep over tonight. So his dad's like, "Hey, cool," drives Andrew over. And then I do the same thing with the VHS to Andrew. I'm like, "This is the shit, man." So then we put it in, and so what am I at this point? I think I'm 15. So we're not like drinking or smoking or anything like that. Or I'm not, at least. Maybe 5 minutes into the movie, like before the intro's even done, I would just stop it, we go downstairs, we steal a bunch of alcohol from my parents' liquor cabinet because we're like, you know, we got to get drunk. Like, look at this shit. These guys are crazy, you know, like it's the Wildcats, right? Neither of us had snowboarded before. So we steal some liquor, we start drinking. By like halfway through the movie, we're full on like partying in my room with Little Bastards on, just like our minds are blown. Like it comes to like Dev's part and we're just like, what? Like in disbelief that this is happening, like snowboarding. And before the movie's even over, I just get this like flashback memory. The prior summer, I borrowed my neighbor's lawnmower to cut the grass, and there was a snowboard in the garage. And I'm like, Andrew, there's a snowboard in my neighbor's garage. And we're drunk, like frothing. So we go break into the garage, we borrow the snowboard, and we just start walking, man. We're just looking for a hill. I think we walked like an hour, and we found a river with like a bank on, like a river bank, and just took turns, like in shoes in the winter. And that was it, man.
That
that's
story.
how it started.
That was the best story I've ever heard. That was so sick and amazing.
Little bastard.
Let's paint a picture here for somebody who's never been to Winnipeg, which is a province in Canada, Manitoba. So paint a picture of what it's like to get into snowboarding and have grown up in Winnipeg, and you know there's no hills. Like paint a little picture of Stony Spring Hill and getting into snowboarding in the prairies.
Yeah, well, the prairies is like absolutely flat. Like, right, you know, spring, like there's two hills. One's called Spring Hill, one's called Stony Mountain. Spring Hill is like there's a floodway around the city, and the hill is like on the edge of the floodway. I think the chairlift is actually, it's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the world's smallest chairlift.
It was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the smallest chairlift, and the chairlift is submerged underwater when basically the floodway, for those that don't know, is just a giant ditch that goes around the entire city. So if the city has a big snow year, all the water that melts in the city has a place to go because it's so flat. And then it all goes into the floodway, and the floodway fills up, and then our chairlift, because I grew up riding Spring Hill, would be under the water.
And then it's also like it acts as a wind perimeter around our city. So like the snow doesn't stick to the slope. So it's all ice. It's crazy. And then the other hill is Stony Mountain. I think Stony is smaller probably than Spring Hill.
I think maybe it is in vertical by like, a couple meters. But Stony has trees. Spring Hill has one shrub, and the rest of the thing is solid wind tunnel. Stony's got like some trees, what I used to think were like cliffs and stuff. They have some terrain.
That's why me and Jeeves would go to Stony rather than Spring Hill, because it was like we just watched Little Bastards, which is all like backcountry stuff, and Stony has like more like shape to the hill, so we felt like we were like hitting cliffs and like doing tree runs and stuff. And like so Stony Mountain is the like hardcore prison in Manitoba is in this little town called Stony Mountain. And I don't know, like for some reason, all the sort of like bad kids would gravitate to going to Stony Mountain and to snowboard, and the good kids would go to Spring Hill, you know, like you and Kuzik. And and
There's
Jeeves
definitely
grew
a
up.
few. There's a few rotten eggs at Spring Hill too, but
Yeah, Jeeves grew up in Wolseley, which is like a pretty rough area. And I don't know, we just gravitated towards the bad kids. It was more fun. So yeah, that's why we'd go to Stony Mountain. But then turns out, yeah, I'll just throw this out there. The owners of Stony Mountain are just straight fucking criminals. Like the dude Gary, like he'd groom the hill when the hill's open, drunk, just drive it straight up the main run, fucking head out the window, fuck you, like just swearing at kids. Kids are like, bah, bah, like dodging the groomer. And like, it's just crazy. Like,
he is not fabricating. I used to go to Spring Hill quite often, or to Stony every few weeks. The Spring Hill kids would venture over to go into Stony to switch up the terrain. And I mean, we had a groomer with a similar his name. Our groomer was named Gary too, and both of the groomers at Stony and Spring Hill, I don't mean to throw them under the bus, but they both were definitely alcoholics, driving around drunk in groomers. It was nuts.
Maybe it was like 1 week without grooming the hill, and every kid would go to Gary or Heather and be like, can you please groom the hill? Like my friend just broke his tailbone because it's so icy. And he would always sit at the counter at the cafe, and he's drunk, and he would just like mumble like, fuck you. And like I'm sitting there, I'm like 15, 16, 17 at this point, and I'm like, I think he just said fuck you to that kid. We're just like, he is out of line, man. This is crazy. And we have Jordan with us, Buckles, and Jordan is like the funniest kid, like has like a stutter, super ADD, like just craving attention, like will do anything. And I'm like, Jordan, you got to go rally up everybody at the hill, and we'll go one at a time up to Gary and ask him to groom the hill. So this is like 100 kids, because I just heard him tell this one kid to fuck off, and I'm like, this is gonna set him off, you know? So we get like 100 kids to go ask him one at a time to groom the hill. And maybe at like kid 50, Gary's like, that's it. No more tow rope. And he stumbles out to the tow rope, and he turns the tow rope off because too many kids asked him to groom the hill. He's like, you can fucking walk. Like, what, dude?
Oh man, yeah. We had a different upbringing than most who grew up riding like normal hills. If you wanted something done, like a change a rail or have a feature at the hill, you had to bring your own shovels to the hill and like bring the feature. I remember Jake and his dad actually building features and bringing them to the hill. It's like there was no features at Spring Hill. There was a few picnic benches with screws in them, an upside down telephone pole to learn on, and then you'd go to Stony and there'd be a flat box. And if you went left or right, you would guarantee clip your edge. You have to stay in the middle because the plastic would start peeling up on like the different spots where the plastic wouldn't continue. It was just like you had to look before you leap every single day you would go to Stony or Spring Hill, or you would die. If you were just somebody who showed up and front 270'd onto a feature and you didn't ever ride that feature before, you would go to the hospital immediately.
The plastic on the box was actually it was nailed in, and I asked Gary, I was like, hey Gary, you should use screws, screw it in, because the nails come come up, you know, and this is why there's like 5 broken collarbones a night. And he told me to shut up. He said, shut up. So yeah,
Okay, we can
I
talk
actually
about Stony all night.
one more Stony story. So I did this actually like really like traumatized me. I did my Cassie thing, so that's like get certified to be a snowboard instructor. I think I'm 16, and so I get it, and then I get a job at Stony. So I'm a snowboard instructor at Stony, and I'm giving lessons like every night, trying to make money to get a new snowboard. And when it comes time to getting paid, I see that my pay is always shorted. And I always ask like, hey, like I gave this many lessons, I should have this much money, but why is it less? And they always tell me that they're going to go through their books and let me know. And maybe after about three pays, like a month and a half, I went and said again, like I need the money for the lessons I've given. Like you guys owe me like $500 now. You've shorted me. Can you please go through the books?
And the nails in your boxes have destroyed my board, and I need a new one.
And Heather's like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. I go in the lodge and Gary just starts yelling at me, saying that I have no respect and I'm setting a bad example by not having the paper lift pass. Okay. I have a season's pass. I work for Stony Mountain, and I'm fired and I'm banned for life.
Oh my God.
So I couldn't go to the Forum Youngblood contest. I was like, dude, I just cried in my room like all day while it was happening. And like, yeah, then I started going to Spring Hill and I met you guys and I was like, well, this place is, they groom the hill, and wow, they groom the hill. Oh.
Yeah, we stole you guys after that event. I feel like you and Jeeves came over to Stony Mountain, and yeah, that event, just to touch base on companies and brands that still do events at small hills. What that does for a small hill is insane. Like I was looking forward to that event since I saw it in the magazine like months prior. I was like, the Forum Youngbloods is happening at Stony Mountain. Like I was losing my mind, and the event was so sick. And I mean, everyone that was the best snowboarder at the time was like Ian Ferris, Tyler Beckel, like Jeeves, everyone, Connor, Jarrett, everyone was there and everyone was killing it. I always wondered why you weren't there. And there's the background story to it.
Like 2 years later, I went to the Youngblood contest in Alberta. I ended up winning that one. And so I got to go to the Youngblood finals in Tahoe.
No way.
And my roommate was Kareem El Rafi, bro.
What?
And that was like the birth of me and Kareem's friendship. Yeah.
I did not. Who else would have been at that event? Like, were there any pros, any other AMs that are notable?
Oh, dude, there's like everybody. Pat Moore, Peter Line, Bjorn, like the whole crew was there. Yeah, I got second, and fucking Nick Sauvé won.
No way.
And that was like the birth of Sauvé on forum, and I was like, ah. He's just like so nice. He is so good, man. Like, yeah, Nick Sauvé.
That guy is a talented mother blanker, fucker, whatever you want to say there. So a question I had for you was style. It's always been a huge part of you, from the outfits to the videos you were watching to the goggles that you were wearing. You guys just kind of had it all dialed. Well, me and Jake and our whole crew were just kind of like figuring it out because we were a lot younger too, but we were also just a bit more clueless. And you definitely brought that like older figure that a lot of us really looked up to. I'm curious to know, like, who were the guys that you looked up to at that point for your style?
From skateboarding, I guess. When I got sponsored by that shop, um, the main dude was Mike McDermott, and the manager Ryan was his filmer, and Ryan just like took me under his wing and always took me on little like filming missions with him and McDermott. And yeah, he's like, dude, you gotta match your shoelaces to your shirt. Like, keep your kit tight. Like, and like trick choice and shit. Like, he's like, you gotta watch the Chocolate Tour. That's like the girl movie at that point, like girl skateboards.
Yeah.
Like, and then when after you've watched it, watch it again and again. It's like it's all about Gino Anucci. So he just like instilled that into me. And McD at that point, and even still, was just like a style god, like his trick choice. And it's not like, it's not what you do, it's how you do it, you know?
Big time.
Yeah, so that's where that came from. And then the first snowboard movie I ever saw was Little Bastards. Devin's the favorite. And if don't need to explain Devin Walsh, you know?
No. Style god, trick selection god, switch method, cab threes, switchback threes. He just had it at a year early age. But same thing. Devin was a massive follower of skating. So
Yeah, you wanna do the big trick to win the contest, right? So like if you can do front fives, well, try to do front sevens. But I always thought if you can't do all 360s, you got no business learning any 540. Like, you know, learn front 5-0s, learn back 5-0s, learn lip slides, front boards. Like, don't skip steps, because you're going to get to a point when you're older that you're going to have like super weak points, you know, like can only spin one way, or like you can do cab 270s like onto the rail, but you can't front board.
totally. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say that you're the master at that from an early age. You kind of taught me that, like, well, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. But a big thing I always remember, like riding the park with you, and you were doing like, you would ride the kink and you would just do switchback 50, switchback 50, switchback 50, back 180, switch front 50, fakie 50 50, nollie 50 50, nollie backside one, like every trick. And you would just do all the basic shit with the hard shit, mind you, but like the best Steve. But it's really because you took the time to learn all the easy stuff, so learning the next step becomes so easy. And I really took that into when and we can touch base on this a little bit later, when I was coaching at COC, being like, don't just try the cab 270 if you can't switch 50-50, and you can't switch board slide, you can't switch front board, because once you have the fundamentals down, you can unlock so much shit so much faster. It's like, it seems frustrating to learn all the 180s, all the 360s, but once you have all those, learning 540s and 720s becomes so much easier, and your pop's good and you're not drifting off the jump and landing on your ass.
Yeah, and like flat ground. Like I love flat ground. Just get on a nice groomer and do 20 switch ollies in a row. Like, try to do like a back three flat ground on a groomer. Yeah, that shit's hard to do proper.
Yeah, to get it all the way around without like scrubbing like at least a 180.
You know, and like you see some people do like back 270s onto like down rails or whatever, and every once in a while they tink their nose and they just get really hurt. Well, they probably have a shit back three flat ground.
That's facts right there. I
Should have
actually
practiced
quit.
flat ground.
Yo, flat ground plug, dude. Great. And you're to the people that don't know, I would say that maybe one of the best flat ground boarders out. I mean, you, E-Man, you guys put yourselves on a groomer. I mean, you could do all of the tricks over the slow signs. You know, you could fakie it, nollie back 180, switch ollie. Yeah, fakie full cab. I mean, anything. You had all those tricks dialed. And damn, yeah, if I was a young kid, that would be a big takeaway for me right now, is just to like slow the hell down and do all that micro stuff that you overlook. Flat ground, yeah, get it dialed. That's a good plug right there.
So when I first moved to Whistler, Jared O's like, oh yeah, I got a friend's got a room, and it ended up being in E-Man's house, and it was with like E-Man, McClatchy, Graydon, and Hayden. And I'm like a little contest dork at this point. Like I just totally didn't fit in that house. And they're always playing NHL. And I smashed him in NHL, like the video game. And he was the champ. So he just like, I'm like the contest kid from Banff that just smoked him in NHL. So he fucking hates me. And then we see each other on the hill. So we do some laps together. And I just see him like doing tricks over slow signs. Like he's the boss, you know, like flat ground and slow signs and shit. And I'm like treading lightly. I'm not even ollieing the slow signs because I'm like, he already hates me because I beat him in NHL. And I've realized at this point that he's like a god in Whistler. We come up to this one slow sign and it's like a really tall one. And he says to me, he says, bet you can't switch ollie it. And then he just drops in, doesn't wait for me to respond. And he's way taller than me, you know? So like what's high for me isn't high for him. He's like 6'2" or something. I'm like 5'9". So he clips it and just gets fucking demoed. And I know 100%, man, I can switch ollie this in my sleep. I cruise in, I just switch ollie it, spray him.
Yeah. You beat him in NHL, then you ollie a slow sign. Yeah, don't piss off E-Man. What was it like when you came from Banff to Whistler? Did you like, what was that vibe like? I mean, the switch up there. I mean, I feel like when I was a kid, I was almost going to move to Banff, and then last minute I ended up switching to Whistler, and then you inevitably come to Whistler. And I mean, the Wildcats are from Whistler. I feel like it was just kind of the mecca at that, and especially in the early 2000s. You go to the bar or anything like that, it's like every single pro is there filming their video parts. And what made you transition from Banff to Whistler?
At the time, Banff, Lake Louise was known for having a better park than Whistler. They had bigger jumps. Yeah, and I was like, I just want to go where the biggest jumps are. I want to hit big jumps.
Yeah, you were a big jump god back then.
I just did every contest I could, like in the Alberta area. And I won the Canadian Aaron Style at COP. And then Hardingham and Jonas Gwynn started like being really cool to me and like asking me to go snowboard with them at like Sunshine Village and stuff. And then Kevin Sansalone came to Banff because he's friends with Hardingham and Jonas, and he'd always go to Banff. And he asked me to film for Sandbox, but he said I should move to Whistler. So then I went to Whistler that summer, snowboarded all summer, worked, saved, and yeah, that was it. Then the next winter, I was filming for Sandbox, I still wasn't too sure if I was going to stay in Whistler. And then that year was that contest showdown over the city.
Remember
And
it well.
Yeah, so I was rep sponsored by Endeavor at that point, and Rye Guy, oh fucking legendary Rye Guy, like the sickest rep ever.
Yeah, shout outs to all the dope ass reps over there out there in the world holding it down for their local communities. Good reps rule.
Ryan Patey. Yeah.
Yeah, Rye Guy's the best.
Yeah, so Rye Guy's like, Kev, there's this contest, showdown over the city. It's like the biggest contest in Canada, like this and Shakedown. And the entire Endeavor Pro team is going to be there. I'm going to try to get you into it. It's going to be a really big jump. So just ride Black Park. I'll get you in the contest. And the Endeavor owners will be there. You got to beat everybody on the pro team and you're in, man. And I'm like, okay. So I just rode Black Park like fucking rain or shine every day, all day.
I know, I was in there with you. I was your riding buddy.
It would be like, yeah, you know, unless it was raining or shitty, and then you're like, fuck that.
No, you would ride it if it was bulletproof, it was cloudy, and you would do all of your tricks in any condition. It was just, it was insane.
And Solars. And Solars was like putting in mad hours in that park as well.
Yeah, probably Solars, Belzil, you, Andre Benoit. Like there was a few people that would like ride that park and ride it really well back then.
Yeah, then showdown over the city happened, and the jump was fucking big. It was like, I think it was like a 30-foot step down, like an 80-foot flat, and made finals. And I think it was like Logan Short and Jake Koya also made finals. Man, the finals was crazy at that contest. There was like Mark McMorris, but he was really young, so like not really like Mark McMorris yet.
Yeah.
Like Seb Butts, Sage Kotzenberg, fucking Solars.
Yeah, the big dogs at that time.
Yeah, like Belzil, JF Fortin, Dave Fortin, like Travis Williams. I was like, holy shit, like with the big dogs, you know?
Buckle up.
They had a little meeting before the finals and they're like, okay, so we're going to switch the format for the finals. It's going to be 1 hour, every hit counts. We're scoring every hit, and whoever has the highest score at the end wins.
Sus.
And I'm like, oh, because double corks just started happening at that point. And I'm like, fuck a double cork, you know, like I'm going to do a back 5, like cab 3 and shit. But that doesn't work good for this contest. But then they changed the format, and then a gnarly fog storm rolls in. So you can't see the takeoff, like where you're dropping. So I just lace through the tricks. I go like back 1, switch back 1, front 180, cab 3, front 3, front 5, back 5. I get to 9s, and I get to do 1 9. I do a back 9, and then the contest is over. And I'm like, fuck, like I just learned back 10s. I was like, I need to do a back 10.
Back 10 tails. I remember. I was there.
Yeah. And then they're like doing the awards or whatever, and they call third. I was like, maybe I get third. And I didn't get third. And I was like, damn it, I blew it. You know, I should have done the back 10. And then I ended up winning. And it's just like, that blew my mind. And that's when Sant Salone was like, okay, now take that money, you buy a sled and a truck, and you are locked in, man. You film for my movie. So that was like my like, okay, I'm moving to Whistler. I'm gonna buy a sled and a truck. But then I got the sled and the truck, man. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go sledding and hit backcountry jumps, you know, like the little bastards. And this is when I found out like the politics of shit. And he's like, look, man, I got my A crew, my B crew, and my C crew. And he's like, the A crew is like Rusty, Solars, Jeeves. The B crew is like Jeff Brown, whoever.
Yeah. Mikey
He's
Pedersen.
like, yeah. And he's like, and you're the C crew.
You're with Jody.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, how do you make these crews? Like, he's like, it's based on sponsor money in the movie. And I don't get nothing for you, man. I'm like, oh, I'm like, that's whack. But that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, now that I'm older and I've seen people make movies and stuff, if you paid nothing into the movie and other people did, obviously there's going to be more of a emphasis on getting the riders in that paid. And I think if anything, if you're the rider who's getting in for free, just work your ass off. And I mean, if you kill it, it's not like they're not going to use that footage. But like you said, you buy a truck and a sled and you just hoping for the opportunity to go out there and use those things to actually film like legit clips for once, can be kind of like a heartbreaking scenario. But to all those, if you get the opportunity, if any kids are listening to this and you feel kind of overlooked, just keep boarding and keep stacking clips. Because if you look at a lot of your parts, I would say you didn't have big sponsor dollars in. Same with me. Rusty never had sponsor dollars in a movie. And a lot of those guys got like big, pretty solid segments in the movie that kind of like rolled their career. And it was pro bono, which at the time, I think a lot of people got mad at Sansalone for. But the more I look at the logistics of it, he was just running a business.
Oh, like at the time, I just thought that was like the wackest thing. And
oh yeah, I remember.
As the years passed, like,
so did I.
Look, yeah,
because I knew how good you were. I was like, you give my boy Griff a shot. You put him in. You're acting like he's a sea liner.
But now I look back and I'm so grateful that Kev even gave me a chance. Like he had to pay filmers to film me, and I wasn't making him anything. And like he even like 2 years later, he gave me a full part with zero money in the movie. And like, oh, I owe a lot to Kevin Sansalone for sure. Like,
same.
I was just a little grommet and didn't get it. I was like, well, I'm better than him, so.
You were better than a lot of people in that movie.
If I'm C crew, he should be D crew.
Yeah, totally. I ride with him in the Black Park every day. I mean, yeah.
He doesn't land.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. This is a sick chapter. We're talking about park jumps. I think that anyone who kind of followed your career, I think that a lot of people obviously don't maybe know who you are because you have been gone from the Instagram world of snowboarding since the big blow up of social media. It's kind of when you started dissipating your full on snowboard career. But you were a superpark kid. You were a kid who got found at superpark. I think a lot of your sponsors rolled from there. I think a lot of people really started to realize how talented you were and how good your style was and trick selection. I think superpark put a big emphasis on like your style and standout. Give a quick breakdown on like what it was like to be at superpark back at the day, what it did for you, and the importance of like that whole thing. Just touch base on superpark because I feel like it was a big part of your career.
I think that's like the main reason I got to be a pro snowboarder was because of superpark. When I first moved to Banff, the first contest I went in at Lake Louise, I won the contest, and the park staff foreman gave me a job working in the park. I was like, oh, like so stoked.
At superpark? Or
no,
okay.
Just at Lake Louise, like in the park at Lake Louise.
Oh, sick.
And that year we had the biggest jumps in a public park in all of North America. It was like 60 foot to 70 foot to 80 foot to 100 foot. But the deal was we couldn't open the jumps to the public unless one of the park staff tested the jumps first thing in the morning. So somebody has to hit the fucking 100-foot jump first thing in the morning for us to be able to open the jump line. And obviously nobody wants to do that. Like, it's 100-foot
in the morning, bulletproof, you knuckle, bruised heel, you're out for the year.
Yeah, you know. But the jumps are really well built. Like, it was Jeff Patterson that built those jumps. But then it was Dom Palausi, Leanne Palausi's little brother, who did maintain them all throughout the year. And a little part of him, like, he didn't like me because he was the best snowboarder at like Lake Louise at that time. And I don't know. He just didn't like me. And yeah, so the park foreman was like, all right, guys, whoever will guinea pig the jump line in the morning can just snowboard all day, paid. Does anybody want to do it? And everybody looks at each other and they're like, nah. And I'm like, me, I'll do it. So I did that all year. I guinea pigged the jump line, and I would get to snowboard all day. And then that spring, Lake Louise got to host Superpark. So then I was park staff for Lake Louise. So we got to build a feature in Superpark. And then there was the big jump at Superpark. It got built and nobody wanted to guinea pig it. They were saying like the landing's too flat or it's too big. The speed doesn't match up or something. The park foreman, my park foreman, Michael Corner, it's like an absolute legend. Yeah. He says to me, he's like, dude, this is your moment. And it's like, there's like Nicholas Mueller, Travis Rice, Sean White, Danny Cass, like all standing up there, just like, nah. And like, I don't give a shit, man. Like, I'll send this jump if I'm allowed to. And Michael says, yeah, just go up there, man. And don't stop at the start point. Just fucking ghost through everybody so nobody can stop you. And I'll make sure the takeoff's clear and you can send it. I'm like, hell yeah. So I send it. I do a back 5. I go super deep. And Bridges is at the bottom. And Bridges is like, yeah, like this. And I just ghost by him because I'm like, I'm scared. Am I going to get in trouble? And yeah, like an hour later, Bridges goes and gives me an actual Superpark rider pass and says I can ride Superpark. So then I ride all that Superpark. And then the next year it's at Keystone. And Bridges sent me an invite for that Superpark, and then that's how it all started with Superparks.
And what was it like to ride at Superpark back then? Who were the standouts? What was it? What was the energy like? I feel like people, if you've never been, which I mean, obviously nobody who's listening to this has been. I mean, a very small, like, what was like that was people pushing snowboarding back then. Like people were. That was basically an Evel Knievel snowboard park for the best snowboarders who had the talent to ride the biggest jumps. So what was it like to ride there back then?
At that time, it wasn't about creativity. It was about just like make the biggest jump, make the biggest hip, like big, you know? Yeah, so it was really scary. Like even like all the like top dogs, they're scared. Everybody's scared. And like Pat Bridges, he's, for people that don't know, he's the editor of Snowboarder magazine. and he runs Superpark. So if he sees you fall 2 times in a row, you get tapped. So that means he takes your pass and you can go home. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, there's like one guy knuckle the jump. Who was it? I think it was Marc-Andre Tartar. Knuckle the jump and then ragdoll down the landing, and his board like took a big chunk of snow out of the landing. And Bridges is like, calls him over. He's like, "You're done. You took out a chunk of snow out of the landing." It's like, oh man.
I'll never.
So it was stressful, super parks back then, but then they slowly transitioned into like being creative with the build. And like when we went to, where was it? Mammoth?
Yeah, I think Mammoth was my first one with you, me, and Logan Short drove down.
Yeah, it more turned into like a fun park.
Well, I mean, the first 2 years I went was just big jumps, no roller section. It was the first year I went was the year that Travis Rice made his first movie. And that's the jump that they were shooting on. And I remember you just telling me the whole drive there, Jody, when you're going off one of those jumps, just tell yourself you're not a sketch. Like, you're not going to drift. You're not a drifty. I still say that in my head when I'm hitting a jump in the backcountry to this day. Like, that quote from you, like, you're not a sketch. It just makes me like, I like kind of flex my core, and I'm like, I'm not going to just drift off the side of the jump and hit the rock. I'm like, you need to roll into those jumps with full confidence, like that you're not going to hit the trees on the right, or not make the gap and splat into the backside of the landing. Like, you have to make it. You can't be a sketch at Super Park, or your life could possibly be over, which tons of people, as we've both seen and witnessed at Super Park, a few sketchy people come every year and they don't get tapped early enough. And I think that we need to put some emphasis on the fact that Pat Bridges isn't being a dick. He's doing it so people don't get hurt, because people, when you're hitting a jump that's 60 to 70 feet minimum and those massive hips, if you screw up, like, you could die. So he doesn't want it out of his hands. So if you're a sketchy rider who goes off to do a backside 7 and then you put up a 90-degree takeoff before you go, and you're going backwards up the jump because you don't know how to hold an edge, it's like, you're done, buddy.
Yeah, he's on point with what he's doing. And like, just because you're a pro snowboarder and you're in magazines doesn't necessarily mean you're a really good snowboarder, you know? And Super Park would show that. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember going there and seeing tons of pros that I looked up to, and then being like, that's how you ride? And especially when you're a young jumper, like, I never really put like the backcountry riders in that crew. I was never like, oh, like, these are all I wasn't expecting anything from them. But like the up and coming pros, when I first was coming to Super Park, like the forum crew, like Pat Moore, Dustin Craven and stuff like that, you could really see who was going to be yourself. I mean, there was just some people who you would watch live and be like, that person just has it, and they are a good snowboarder.
Dustin was always a standout at Super Parks. Yeah. Dustin's fucking good when he was a kid, man. Oh, he's really good now.
Yeah. Oh, Chucky too. Charles White was another person most people probably wouldn't have heard of him, but he was another phenomenal 720 kind of back 180 guy who would just do style tricks like back 180 taipan, the biggest jump. And you're just like, oh my God.
The first year, Lake Louise Super Park, Charles actually got, there was like this, like, I don't know if it was an award or like, but he got named standout rider for one of the days at Super Park. And he wore like a full like pink kit, pink pants and pink top. Yeah, he had like a crazy back Seb Japan. Oh, he was so sick, man. Charles White still is so sick. I follow him on Insta. He's still like just hiking stuff, ripping. Yeah.
Yeah, he's boarding more than ever. And I mean, yeah, Dustin, it's crazy too. So let's bring it back here a little bit to Whistler. I'm hyped we got to touch base on Superpark because those are some fond ass memories I had with. Remember, okay, another quick side story. Remember when we went and Seb Toots was in our room? It was like all you, me, Logan Short. I don't remember who else was there, and then Seb Toots was just in our room. And he just like couldn't speak English really. And he just hung out in his room by himself. And all of us just were getting hammered.
That's Superpark?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I don't remember that. So I won't say I do, but
No, nice.
maybe
It was a fun night. I thought maybe you'd remember it. But anyway, do you remember on the way back, you and me and Logan slamming monster drinks and drinking chew so we could stay awake all night? And we all pulled over on the side of the road puking.
the little pack under the lip.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then we started puking.
Oh, yeah. Puking everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember coming back from that super park. I was on Grenade at that time, and I just had done like a bunch of big jump tricks. And I remember I was so excited. That was the coolest thing ever, because super park, since I was a young kid, had been built up to like, if you get to go to super park and you ride well there, like that was a big accomplishment for me. And to share that memory with you at a young age was so fucking sick. Like that was like the best times. Kind of off topic. And I mean, what was it like to watch, yourself starting to blow up? And I mean, Jeeves did blow up. Like, like you were doing well.
Oh,
I was still like scratching at the surface, and Jeeves at this point had hit like terminal velocity. Like he was on billboards and it was crazy.
yeah.
He was getting paychecks when I was living with him, like checks in the mail, and he's getting crates of DC stuff. And he was like, take whatever you want, boxes of electrics. It was like, I was like, holy, traveling the world, him and Heldor Helgeson going all over the place. I was just like, I didn't even know what happened. I feel like I blinked. And then the next day, like one of my best friends was just like in all of the magazines. I went to the trade show with you. And I remember going around and I think it was with you, and we saw him on the DC had like this massive wall of Andrew dropping in on that dam, and he's like riding down this dam, and it just says Andrew Jeeves, and that was like, they're like, welcome to DC, this is our kid. I'm like, holy shit.
I knew, like, since really young, it was just very clear that this kid is a superstar. And he did he start drinking and partying at a pretty young age, because we grew up watching Little Bastards, and we were like skate rats, right? So like goes hand in hand, only I was like 16 and he was like 12. So I was worried about him, that just he would party too much and that it would go to his head. And then I moved to Whistler, and I saw that it did. Like he partied too much, and it went to his head. Yeah, it was really hard to watch, and I tried like having heart to hearts with him, and I would think it was going somewhere, and then he would just revert back into like the whole party thing. I remember getting you and Kuzik, and I think maybe Anthony Hayward and Barker together when you guys lived in Tamarask to have a talk, to do like, we need an intervention for Jeeves because he's ruining himself. Nobody wanted to hop in to do something about it, but like looking back now, like at you and Kuzik and what Jeeves was like, good luck trying to stop that, man.
Totally. And I mean, at Tamarisk, like you mentioned, I was 18. Like, we are kids.
Well, I think it wasn't his fault. I think the the snowboard industry did this to him, and it's so broad that like nobody would like no individual can take responsibility for it, but like he was a 16-year-old kid that was partying really hard, all his sponsors, everybody was aware. He was better than everybody. Like in Whistler, he was better than fucking everybody. Like, you know,
Yeah, 100%.
and the brands are like, oh, it's marketable, you know. You go to the bar and he's wearing these crazy colors and he's standing on the bar being like, ah! You're like, yeah, sick, rock and roll, right? Like, because at this point, snowboarding was starting to go a little bit like jockish, and he was the complete opposite of that. They love the image until it doesn't work for them for a moment, and then like actually turns out they don't give a shit about him. Like, he's just a kid. Come on, should have helped him.
Totally. And it's like you said there, it's no, you can't pinpoint responsibility at anybody, and you have to give a lot of props to the older people in Andrew's life, like Kevin Sansalone, who was a great mentor and I think who was
Yeah,
always there for Andrew, Steve Harris from the Circle, and Jeff Keenan from Dino. Like there was a lot of people that were there for him when he was for when he was partying and stuff, and I don't want to make it look like this was like worse than it was, but I also don't want to make this look like it was less than it was, because it was a big concern. And when he got let go from DC there, I mean, yeah, which was, I think, really hard for him and stuff like that. And like you said, that there is a responsibility um, for brands. If you're going to market somebody as a partier on your brand and try and suck out that to sell product, like, yeah, like rock stars, and then the 16-year-old 17-year-old kid is partying, and then you get mad at him at a party for being a rock star. It's like, like, what do you mean? This is what you wanted, right?
we grew up on Little Bastards, and for whatever reason, he writes "fuck DC" on his pants. He for sure had a reason, you know. It wasn't for nothing. And well, that's rock and roll, man. That's bold. That's fuck yeah. Like, if you want to say fuck DC and you ride for DC because they did something, all the power to you for actually doing it. We're all humans. Everybody does good and does bad. And like,
Totally.
like call them, go meet up with them, have a conversation with them, ask them what's going on. Like, this is before mental health was getting addressed. And well, what do you think the state of someone's mental health that's an absolute rock star when they're 16 years old? Like, not good, obviously. And like, those brands should have been there for him. Not to say nobody was there for him, but it definitely wasn't his brands at the moment.
His team manager, Nick Olson at DC, him and Andrew were really close, but I just feel like he was like, Andrew was like, yeah, he's a beast of his own when he was partying there, though. And I think he's said it like countless times. There's a lot of times where you would reach out to him, especially once I got older. And I think some people, while they're partying, they just tell you to your face, like, hey, I don't want your help right now. I'm not looking for it. And there's not much that you can do other than legitimately be there when they need you. You know what I mean? If they call you at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, you answer the phone. If somebody doesn't want help changing, you can't just tell them to change. I feel like a lot of people get really offended if they are going through a hard part and you're the friend who's being like, hey, like, you should change, you should do this. It might push them away. I don't know that for sure, though. And there's a lot of different ways of dealing with somebody who's going through, whether it's mental health or partying or substance abuse of any kind. You know what I mean? And I'm not telling anybody how to navigate that. I think that the best advice would be talk to a professional And if you're going through any sort of substance abuse, talk to a professional or one of your best friends and be very open that you have it. So at least people know about it. Because the worst would be to be like a closet, which unfortunately I've realized a few of my friends, just from back home and stuff, um, the closet issues. Like people, nobody knows about them. That's a real issue. At least when somebody is being a rock star, and going to parties, and I'm not just pinpointing or talking about Andrew anymore, but anybody, at least if you're open with your issue and people know that like that guy's partying and he's doing that, that's better than hiding it to yourself and then not letting anybody know, because your mood swings and you're back to the mental health thing is a giant issue that a lot of people face. And the last thing you need to be doing is dealing with something by yourself, unknowingly by nobody. Reach out to somebody and let them know like, hey, I've been partying a little bit too much. I'm just going to let you know that. And then leave it up to them to be a good friend to stay in contact.
Almost like pointing fingers, and that's wrong. Nobody actually knows like the real story except for Andrew. I think I was quick to blame like the industry because I have a biased outlook on it because I have my personal shit.
And you're entitled to that.
And that's why I'm like, like,
Yeah.
not to be like, I'm not bitter, but I got really messed up. Like my mental health was fucked, and I was like, you saw like I was living in my motorhome in the day lots, like, and I wasn't sharing it with people, but like I was just fucking crying, man, like nonstop, and that's why I left. Like, and that was a result of how I got treated by the snowboard industry. And it's like, you don't know who's really your friend, and like, you got to do what you're told. And if you don't do what you're told, there's 100 people in line that will. So like, people stop standing up for what they think is right and wrong, and they just start doing what they're told. And who's making the rules? Some like marketing kook that doesn't even snowboard. It's like,
So,
yeah.
You touched based on this, and I actually wanted to ask you about this topic. Like you rode for a lot of very core brands. I would say that you had one of the strongest values in snowboarding for a long time, where you've turned down big opportunities with big corporate brands. You chose that. I saw you a lot of times, and it wouldn't even be a juggling. It would be like, you're like, no, I don't fuck with those type of corporations. Like, I'm not into it. Always a real like rider focused. I mean, whether it was Endeavor or Frontline or IS Design or Airhole, when it was just like fully Browner and Kale, like fully, like that was your shit. How did it affect you when you had to make a call like riding for Ripzone? Like how did that, like, I feel like your values were so strong with riding for like those type of brands.
Just as like jokes, like threw a figure at them that I thought was ridiculous, and they obviously would say no, and they said yeah. So then still my thought was like, no way. And then I just did my research on Ripzone, and at the time, it was fully owned, and operated by two snowboarders that snowboard every winter. And I'm like, so why is Ripzone labeled as this like super whack brand? Was the question I'm asking myself. And it's like, oh, because they sell their gear in Sports Check. And then through talking to people at Ripzone, their thing is, we're not trying to fake an image and like be cool in snowboarding. We make outerwear for the average snowboarder. That's it. We love snowboarding. we have a team, we support our team, we pay on time, there's no bullshit. The team manager is a wicked photographer, Jeff Andrick. We do really fun team trips. I was like, okay, so it's owned and operated by two snowboarders, and you guys don't have this like cool image because you don't try to have this cool image. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool, actually. And I knew the hate that I would get for going and riding for Rip Zone. It gave me an opportunity to speak out on my beliefs of why you should support what you support, because Rip Zone was wrongfully labeled as being this like not a snowboard brand.
But don't you think like supporting, like they just have never really like been in the videos or supported like any of the right riders? And I feel like you growing up, you know, it's like you were saying when you were really young, and the guy's like, you watch the chocolate video because these are the fucking dudes, you know, like Ripstone's never really done anything other than try and get a paycheck from like Sports Check, you know? So that's where I've always been like, who cares about Ripstone? You know what I mean? They don't put movies in, or like have like, I don't know, their ads were always kind of cheesy. There was just nothing that ever drew me in. So when, for if I'm being honest, when you went over to them, I was like, I don't care how you're legitimizing this to yourself. I just felt like it did not stand by like what I thought your values were. So I was like, I was blown away because I was like, and especially I thought that you were kind of like, at that point, I thought you were the best snowboarder you've ever been, especially like watching you ride the park. I was like, I just wanted you to hold out. So I was pissed off at you. I was like, fuck you, Griff. Like you're way better than this shit. Like you are the best. So as your friend, I was pissed. I was like, fuck that. My friend Kevin deserves the fucking world. So
Well, I actually kind of liked that they were like, they had this image that they were this whack brand. And I had this image that I was like all about cool brands. And because at that point, Instagram was just coming out, and image is everything, you know, and like all the contracts got changed and you have to gram your brand this many times. And it was like, you know, shameless self-promotion. And it's like that. And it's totally changed now. But like then, like, you're not supposed to promote yourself. That's what the marketer does. That's their job, to market you. And your job is to snowboard, not to brag about yourself. Like, and I did my research, and Ripzone, they approached me. They offered me quite a bit of money. And then I replied to that with, you also got to pay Cale Stevens.
no way.
And they laughed. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, I'm sledding with him every day next winter. He's done so much for me, and he deserves to be paid. No Cale, no me. And they jotted up the contract, and they put Cale on fucking salary and started paying Cale.
Yes.
So you want to talk cool? He's the sickest dude ever. This was a chance for me to give back. You know, I can ride for Ripzone, and people can say that's whack and this brand's whack. Well, like, and they paid Cale, so let's do this. And then I got to go on epic trips, and it was awesome, man. But yeah, actually, and then the marketing, they hired a new marketing person, and she was this chick that used to do the marketing for Nike, and she actually never snowboarded before, and me and her really didn't get along. They had me like at a catalog shoot, like wearing all this super funky gear, like the wrong sizes, and I made it very clear that you can't just dress me up in whatever you want, you know. I won't do it. So I was just like constantly butting heads, and she said some really rude shit to me, and I quit because of it.
Did you
Yeah,
light the paycheck on fire?
and I lit the paycheck on fire, and I fucking grammed it, and I tagged them. So like, whatever. Like, I
Yes.
I had a year and a half of those monthly paychecks, man.
Oh, that was sick. I burnt their paycheck and I grammed it.
If
So
that's selling out, I don't know.
who cares what it is or what it isn't? That's how you felt at that time and you did it. I mean, it was definitely a bold play. I wouldn't recommend it for a lot of folks, but I mean, if that's how you're really feeling about something, you and that lady obviously didn't click and clearly she
Oh,
said some shit that pissed you off. I mean, you're hanging out in Whistler, you know, you're filming for 8 Mile, which is like the shit. Um we should quickly touch base on like why you were so hyped on filming for 8 Mile and what drew you to film for 8 Mile instead of trying to the last few years Sandbox was still going. You and I both had the opportunity to continue to film with Sandbox, but we decided to go full on 8 Mile and then give a lot of our footage to our close friends at Dope Industries. And what kind of drew you into filming for 8 Mile fully and giving some stuff to Dope over like, you know, filming with Sandbox? What drew you over there?
Um, well, the 8 Mile crew was all like Wildcats, right? So, and I grew up on Wildcats, so those were all like my snowboard heroes. Um, I got to know Mikey Rents when I actually lived in Banff. My first job when I got to Banff was working in a shop called The Source, and the manager Mark Walton, who helped me out in so many ways. Big shout out to Mark. Um, he's like best friends with Mikey, so that's where that introduction happened. And I was already the biggest fan of Mikey, like I think every Canadian snowboarder is. Um, yeah, so just when I found out that he contacted Sansalone for my throwaway footage because he wanted to put it in a movie, I was just like beyond flattered. I couldn't believe it. And then I remember Mikey asked me who my favorite snowboarder was, and I didn't even have to think about it. Like at the time, I was like Frank Montoya, obviously, I'm a fan, you know. And he's like, "Oh, cool, cool." And then I go to the premiere, and he gave me a shared part with Mark Frank Montoya to House of Pain jump around. I was like, what? This is crazy. Yeah, and then he's like, yeah, we're gonna make a full movie next year, and we'd like you to film a full part. And Endeavor, so I was always trying to get Endeavor to sponsor Sandbox for me, and Jenky was always like, I would if I had to, but I don't have to. Kevin's just gonna put you in the movie for free because you're really good. I'm like, okay. Like, you know, Max is running a business too, right? But yeah, Max actually sponsored the 8 Mile movie. And he was like, I think you should film for the 8 Mile movie instead of Sandbox because, and he gave me like 20 very valid reasons. And I was like, yeah, I agree with all that. Let's do this.
Yeah, and
So I filmed for 8 Mile.
I was just a little kid, and I feel like you were like, I'm gonna film for 8 Mile. For those that don't know, 8 Mile was like Mikey, Arrow, Ika, Devin, everyone who would just film in the Whistler backcountry, basically, that was friends with Mikey and Johnny Lyle. would all have a giant segment in this 8 Mile movie that was just purely about having fun, and it was the best. Um, Also, just like to touch base on like what it was like to see the unfolding of dope industries.
Yeah, it was really cool. I think it was a very, very similar thing to what 8 Mile was, like the same but different, like kind of different type of snowboarder, like backcountry versus street. But like, yeah, the reason for starting 8 Mile, Mikey said, was that so they could all get to snowboard together more. And I thought that was really cool. And with Dope, um, I think very few people have the passion for snowboarding that David Brocklebank has. And I think whatever he does, it's for the love of it, and that's really rare. And on the front, like you look at him and like the typical judgment of him is like he's just like a skid stoner skate park dude. But if you look into it, he's an absolute legend. He'd find like the new kids at the skate park and film them and hype them up and like, wicked, man. Brocklebank's the shit.
Fuck yeah. That was dope. Yeah, he truly is. He helped like shape an entire generation. Um yeah, David to me is like he's like a mastermind. I think of him as like a creative genius. And I draw so much inspiration. I watch his movies sometimes just to get like he has so many things that he's done that are it's so thought out, you know. He's not just filming and putting stuff out that doesn't like make sense. It's all like it has a reason, it has a purpose. Like each clip selected of each person is so thought out and meticulously done. And just, yeah, he's a mastermind behind filmmaking and making shit dope. He's a creative. He's just got it. Hence why I hope, because Trevor Andrews been hanging around in Squamish a bunch. I hope they kind of collaborate because I think those two are just like two masterminds that have just touched the surface on what they could do some dope shit together for snowboarding. And it's nice to see Trevor back out snowboarding with, I know, somebody who's a big fan um, of yours, and you're a big fan of them, Kale Stevens. So that's been super sick. It seems kind of like at one point snowboarding kind of hits like this stressful head for you, and you kind of, you know, you pack your shit up and you run away. um what was like your mental space, and why did you decide to make that super difficult decision to like just quit and leave? Like what made you feel that way to want to leave?
Um, I always rode for core brands. And it wasn't because I thought it was cool. It was because I really cared about the direction the snowboard industry goes. And as the rider and a person that worked in shops, owned a shop, I felt personally very responsible. And the things I support and the things I say do have an impact. Just even being a pro snowboarder or being like a pro athlete in general, I felt like was just a very selfish job. Like what's your purpose? What good can you do? And I struggled with that. I thought you can be a role model. That's about the extent of the good you can do. And I saw snowboarding going in a very like corporate direction. And I saw the snowboarders that dedicated their lives to snowboarding. When their snowboard career was done, it was over for them. And they're on their ass and they have to figure out what to do. Whereas like when I first started snowboarding, The ex-pros were the team managers. The ex-pros did the marketing for brands. The ex-pros owned the brands. And in the 10 years I was in that industry, it completely changed, where it was like Harvard graduates do marketing for brands, and the ex-pros that own the brands went out of business. And the team managers are like kooky Vancouver dudes that are like just trying to be in the scene. And it's like, while there's some like legendary pro that can't get a job in the industry because he's labeled as a pothead, or, you know, and it's like, I just saw it changing, and I thought it was really sad. And I just always knew what I stood for, and I stuck by it. And as soon as I started getting paid, what I stood for was really colliding with what I was getting told to do. And I was getting told to do a lot of stuff that I really didn't agree with. And I consistently did better every year. I consistently got paid more every year. And the better I did, the more I got paid, the less I got to snowboard, the more catalog shoots and trade shows I had to go to, the more I just got told what to do. And it just really bothered me. Like my thought was like, to a marketing person or a team manager telling me what to do, and I'm disagreeing. And they're trying to tell me that, like, no, like, I have to do what I'm told. And it's like, well, your job only exists because of what I do. You pay me because of what I've already done. I never would have done any of that shit if I was listening to you, marketing person, telling me what your vision is for next year's catalog. I don't give a shit about your vision for your fucking catalog. Just let me do me, you know, like, I just couldn't come up with where this was gonna go. Like, what would be best case scenario? Like, at the end of my career, I start a brand and the brand is successful. You know, like I worked like very closely with Jenke. It was very successful and has done really well. And I pictured myself in his shoes. And I don't want that. I don't want to go to trade shows and be focused on people liking me. Like, if you don't like me, I don't give a shit. Like, but the industry is like, you have to be liked. You know, you need everybody to like you, and you got to be funny, and you got to be marketable, but in the way we tell you. And it's going to change next year, and it's going to change the year after. So yeah, it wasn't fun anymore. So then I was just doing it for a paycheck, but I didn't care about the paycheck. I cared about my love for snowboarding, which was getting fucking stolen from me. So yeah, I went to Bali that summer, just completely like boycotting all my responsibilities to the brands for the stuff I had to do in the summer. And I didn't look at any emails. And then when I was at the airport coming back, I just see this like nasty email from the Rip Zone marketing person, marketing person, just ripping into me saying like, we're worried that you don't take yourself seriously as an athlete. You've boycotted all your responsibilities. You need to come in for a meeting and explain yourself. And it's like, man, you know me, like I worked my fucking ass off snowboarding. When I got to go to Japan and Sweden, I I had to go into shops and give PKs like a rep would do to get my trip paid for. Like I didn't get anything. The Endeavor office, the basement, I painted it. You know, like, and then to have this marketing chick that's never even strapped into a snowboard tell me I need to take myself seriously as a professional athlete is just like, done. I'm done. I just started surfing. Fuck it. I'm going to do a last season. I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to move to Bali. I didn't quit snowboarding. I'll be a snowboarder for life. Snowboarding's in me for life. Whether I go snowboarding this year or not, you want to label me not a snowboarder, I don't give a shit. I'm a snowboarder for life, and I will be back to snowboarding. I never quit. You know, I had my heart broken by the snowboard industry, and it still is. And I'm still very, very upset about it.
What do you think the main reason why you're upset?
At that time, I had dedicated the majority of my life to snowboarding, and I cared very deeply about the direction it was going. That's why I supported the brands I did. And it seemed like very, very few other pros cared about the future of the sport. They just cared about their current situation. And that is why the industry is in the state it's in. You know, us as the athletes, we had a responsibility, and the opportunities that I got when I started snowboarding were because of the Cale Stevens, the Devin Walshes, all the pros throughout the 90s and in the early 2000s. They stood for something. They owned snowboarding. And when I came into it, I watched the snowboarders just give it away. Just, it turned into not knowing your worth and, like, you know, letting a brand turn you pro without paying you. Well, pro means profession. Being a pro, it's paid. Like, it's a fucking risky job, you know? You break your neck, people eyes. Like, if a brand's going to market you as a pro, they need to pay you. Like, it's your profession. And that stopped happening. Just such a slap in the face to all the pros that paved the way before me. And nobody seemed to care.
Yeah, it's important that snowboarding stays in the hands of snowboarders so it stays snowboarding, because like you were mentioning there, if we just keep giving it away, you know, but luckily there are a lot of brands that are dope. And there's always been cool brands, there's always been whack brands, you know, forever. But I think more importantly, it's important that brands that are dope, instead of hiring as you mentioned, the Harvard grad student or whatever, you know, if you have the opportunity to pick a snowboarder and put them in a role, and as long as that person is, you know, got what it takes for the job, in the sense where they're like willing to learn, and if they're taking like like they're going to be the accountant, they actually like study accounting, so your company doesn't just go belly up. I mean, of course, like, keep the snowboarders um like in the brands, or else your brand's just going to suck.
to be a professional snowboarder was like the dream job, right? And then I got it and I was doing it, and it was nothing like I imagined. What I even to this day miss the most about snowboarding is filming, is getting a clip, like is being in the streets, like with you, and finding a rail and chiseling the ice off the stairs. And like if it was offered to me that I could come back, say, to snowboarding next winter and film a video part, I would drop everything I have here in a second, and I would be right into the streets. I miss hitting handrails. I want to hit handrails, man. I'd go to Stockholm. I'd go to Helsinki. I'd go to Winnipeg. Yeah, like snowboarding's evolved, and like I've been gone for like 10 years, but like, man, I could switch back lip a fucking kink tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
Sure, man. It's nice. Get a switchback nose press, half cab. Like, it doesn't leave you, and like, I'm fitter than ever.
Well, what are you waiting for? Come back. Let's see it. I want to see the switchback lip, dude.
I've been working my ass off here for 10 years to get to where I'm at here, and like now I'm a shaper, and I'm about to launch a surf brand and have a surfboard company, and I have my house and the maintenance. I got my dogs, and like my life's here. But I do have a motorhome still in Canada, and yeah, I've been wanting to do it for the last few years. I'm just waiting for when the time's right, and my mental health was really bad at that point, and I knew I needed a change to get better. And like, it fucked me up, man. Like I'm still messed up from it. It looks like I'm just in Bali, like living this vacay life, and like, that's Instagram. This life here is fucking hard, man. Like 10 years in a third world country trying to make something from nothing. It's really hard. And then having the lingering like regrets of leaving what I had as well, and like just having the mindset like instilled in me that like just caring too much, like being a pro snowboarder, that's like mostly what matters, is caring about what other people think. You end up running your life based off what other people think, and being so careful with what you say, because it might upset somebody. And like, I'm even to this day, like I catch myself saying stuff that I don't believe it. And I'm just like, it's like old habits. I struggle in like relationships, like with like I just actually currently lost my girlfriend of 2.5 years. I can only blame myself, but it's habits that I got from when I was a pro snowboarder, what I was always told to do and say and how to act. And I catch myself still acting like this. Yeah, it's like, seems like it's like 10 years later, like fucking haunting me, man.
Well, yeah, that's a big thing too. Is one thing that a big takeaway from snowboarding for me is like, some people, you spend such a long period of time trying to gain their social acceptance and their like stamp of approval, and you kind of shape your life around like being accepted by those people, but you're really just changing who you are for somebody else to accept you, and that's just a waste of time. Like, not everyone's going to like you, and you don't need to make everyone like you. You've been in Bali for such a long period of time now. I'm really grateful that you took the time to just open up about, mental health, which I think in the last 5 years has skyrocketed to the front of everybody's, um, radar. Um, what are some tips? What are some advice to younger or older people who deal with, who are dealing with some mental health stuff? What do you do to be proactive to get out of your ruts when you're somewhere, like Bali, that's already, you're removed away from a lot of your closest friends and stuff like that. So I would love to know how you got through those to help some people who are listening.
I'm probably not a good example because I currently struggle. But I think I've done things that have helped. I found a pretty quiet place, Medewi, and I moved here like 4.5 years ago. I just removed myself from what for me was a toxic environment, and yeah, definitely it helped a lot. Like it's easy to not care about what people think when you're not around people.
It's true.
Um, just just talk about it. That's the advice I'd want to give. Is I always thought that the common question, hey, how are you? That's just like a normal Canadian thing to say, like, oh, how are you? And the response is always, oh, I'm good, man. Even if you're really bad, you're like, you're not going to say I'm really bad because then you're a downer and nobody wants to hang out with a downer. So you're just like, it's in you to just say, oh, yeah, I'm good, man. It's draining. You're lying about how you're doing constantly. Um, so you should have somebody to talk to about that. And for me, I pushed all those people away. Over the last few years, I realized I don't have anybody to talk to about it. It actually makes it worse. Like it got better because I removed myself from it, but then how I would deal with my mental health when I wasn't doing good was wrong. I was just like closing doors to people that cared about me, and that was a big mistake I've made. Um, I'm actually now, like I did like about a week ago, I got a therapist, and it always kind of had this like it was like looked down upon, like if you had a therapist. And it was actually from your podcast with Keegan, and you guys talked about mental health a lot. It just made me really think about my mental health and that it's not good and I need to do something about it. And that was the start of me thinking about it. And then I didn't do anything about it. And then losing my partner, my girlfriend, like a few months ago, really made me realize that I gotta fix this for myself and just for life moving forward. For anybody that does struggle, first there's like being brave enough to actually address it and make the phone call. But most people struggle financially, and therapy isn't cheap. So I think the financial part is something that keeps a lot of people from going and doing it. And at the moment, there's free therapy for all Canadians. So if you even have something little like lingering and you're not comfortable talking about it to whoever you need to, it can just be one call one time. There's hotlines. There's therapists waiting to listen. And yeah, I started like 2 weeks ago, and fuck, I feel so much better, man. Like just being able to say like if you're having mental health issues and you have these thoughts that you know are shit, if you keep them inside, it's going to make things worse. And you're probably scared to voice them to your loved ones because it's going to worry them. And even to like a close friend, it's a lot easier to just say you're good. Just having, even if it's a random person like on this hotline, and being able to actually out loud say what's bothering you, even if they don't even respond, when you hang up the phone, oh, you feel better, man. It's like you got it off your chest. It's real. Like, yeah, it's done wonders for me, and it's only been 2 weeks.
I can't thank you enough for sharing that tonight. Yeah, thanks, man. That's that's gonna change somebody's life. Yeah, maybe it's similar to Keegan opening up about that stuff. It's not easy, and it wasn't. I mean, easy for me to hear as I would say one of your close friends, and to just have no idea and just be going on my life here, but like just thinking like, oh, Griff's surfing. He's the happiest person in the world. It just goes to show right there that how important it is to check in on your friends. So I love you lots, dude. And thank you so much for sharing that. That was fucking made me miss you, dog. Fuck yeah, Kev. We can talk more about that after, but thank you for opening up about that, dude. Yeah. What a way to end the podcast. I think there's a lot of takeaway. I guess a big thing would be, when are you going to come back and start boarding, dude? Everyone wants to see another Griff clip. Would you think that you can make it happen next year or no? I hope I win the lottery, dude, because I'm putting you on a plane.
It's 100% financial. Like it's not easy for me to make life work here. Yeah, and that's not why I'm starting this brand. I'm starting the brand because it's real, and I'm passionate about it, and I love it. But with that being said, I know it's going to work, and financially, I'm going to be good and have the freedom to go snowboard.
Hell yeah, Kev.
And not go snowboard, film a fucking video park. And whether people like it or not, I don't care. I just want to hit rails, you know?
I'll come hit rails with you. I know Demo will. I bet you E-Man would come back in the streets if you were there. Probably Lane. We could have a family reunion.
Hopefully sooner than later.
Perfect. All right. So thank you for coming on. I love you, man. Thank you for years of inspiring, and thank you for sharing your stories, dude. I cannot thank you enough. At the end of each episode, I like to ask for kind of just whatever random questions. So number one, if you could have one wish come true, what would that be?
Fuck.
That's a new one. I just added it, and it's good, eh?
That's heavy.
Back in Sweden with me and Kareem.
Holy. Okay, so not thinking about what people would think from my response.
Yeah.
It would be to get my chick back.
Get her back.
Yeah.
Oh man,
yeah, definitely.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
We're praying to the gods for that one for you. Also, no one is an expert at relationships, so I think a big thing that I've learned over the years is read about them and learn about them like anything else in the world, like mental health. No one's perfect at everything. And when you spend your entire life snowboarding or working at anything, you neglect other parts of your life, like how to deal with mental health when you've never even had to think about mental health until you're alone. And then you're like, boom, this is a point of my life I do not have dialed. I don't have women completely figured out. I don't have men completely figured out, or I don't have finance completely figured out. It's like, if you don't have something figured out and you're struggling with it, the best thing you can do is be open with the fact that you're not the best at it and do some research, and don't feel bad or guilty that you have to do that. Cause I mean, Lord only knows I continue to learn every day that I'm learning lots. So I'm learning lots from just this podcast right now. I have goosebumps. Number 2, advice for the younger generation.
Like snowboarders.
Nah, just in general, just anyone, just people or snowboarders for sure. One of each.
If you're not passionate about what you're spending most of your time doing, do something else.
That's perfect. Seriously, simple as that.
And keep doing something else until you find that thing. Because yeah, it's pretty awesome if you can spend the majority of your days doing something you love doing.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Number 3, geez, yeah, that was amazing. Everything that you said. So, first song that you knew all the words to. Let me guess, Big L. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
All the words.
Yeah, what was the first song you memorized?
The intro to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes. That was so sick, Kev. Yeah, that would be me too. I would have lied unless I said that.
Is that a song? Yeah, it's a song.
Yeah, it's the best, dude. All right, number 4, do you believe in aliens?
Yeah.
Well, where do you think they are? What do you think they look like? See, stumped.
I don't give it that much thought, but Elon Musk, come on.
You mean he's an alien?
Yeah.
For sure, he's from the future.
Yeah.
He's from the future, and he's just messing with everybody because he thinks it's funny. Because he's going to change the course of history.
Probably E-Man. E-Man's like a rebelling alien.
Yeah, I can see that because he's so good at everything.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen him climb a tree or do anything? He's a fish. Take a canoe off his car. He's just good.
I think it was when he went home to like visit family, and his brother had this like rope ball thing, and he throws it up into a tree and harnesses himself, and like he was just infatuated. Getting really high up in trees.
All right, a bonus question for you would be: who are some, or just some snowboarders that that you're into these days? You've been kind of away from the scene for the last. Is there anybody that you're like, that guy is sick? Or like, what's your vibe these days? Lots of new kids have entered the scene.
Yeah. Well, I still currently watch everything.
Sick. I love that. So the sneaky look.
I know who the new kids are, No, like I'm sure they're cool, like as like people or whatever. But as far as like now, I'm just a fan now, right? Like
Yeah.
I just watch snowboarding for entertainment, and there needs to be depth to the entertainment.
Did you watch the new Vans movie?
Yeah.
I feel like you would like Cole Navin. He's gnarly and he hits
Yeah,
the
I
shit
really like
shit.
Coleman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keegan, biggest fan, Keegan Blake. Jed.
Yeah, he's
I
still
was
the best.
always a Jed fan, but not like super Jed fan. And now I'm a super Jed fan. Kuzik, obviously, like hard to, maybe it's like kind of biased because we grew up with him, but fuck, I'm like beyond proud of Kuzik, and like him opening up his work ethic, like from day one. He always just worked harder than everybody, and that is why he got to be where he is, because he worked hard. And like his creativity, and like it's the same thing with like Jed and with Keegan. Like it's not just they're not robots. They're individuals, and they're doing things their way, and that's why they stand out, and they're awesome to follow.
Yeah, I love those picks. Thank you for coming on the show, Kev.
The people that I follow.
Oh yeah, yo, hit me.
You, man.
No.
100% you. I've been following you obviously the whole time.
Nope.
And yeah, it's
You sent me a
it's
DM last year
inspiring.
saying to get on the steel.
No, for real though. Your whole journey, it's inspiring. You've stayed dedicated. You're hilarious with like, you always play like that you don't really care. Like, nah, you know, like we'd go on rail trips and you're the guy that's like claiming he's not going to do anything. And like, it used to piss me off when we'd be on rail trips, and
Oh yeah.
obviously you saw it in Sweden. But yeah, just like now that you're doing this podcast, and yeah, I definitely, you're a wicked influence, and I'm super hyped on you, Joe.
That means a lot coming from you, big dog. I literally just tried to replicate you for the first 5 years of snowboarding. So as everyone did in our hill. And interesting enough, like Dara still snowboarding, Jill still snowboarding, Jake still snowboarding, me, Demo, like Walker, Vogs. It's like all those people I know looked up to you so much, and everyone's like still doing it, which is like so cool that you helped like fuel an entire generation. And I would say all those people have really good taste and they have really good qualities in snowboarding. Just like really like from being a hometown hero to like inspiring an entire group of people who've all in their own right inspired more people. It's kind of like the ripple effect, you know. It really can change a whole life if you're just an inspiring individual from your hometown. You know what I mean? And that's exactly who you were. You were a role model at a young age. And I mean, I can't thank you enough for being on the show, boss. Love you, buddy. Thank you so much for sharing.
I got to give a shout out to just a few people.
Yeah.
Kevin Paul, like a Manitoba snowboard manager legend. I really looked up to him, and he helped me a lot. And Mark Walton, he was the manager at the Source when I moved to Canmore. He had my back, man. He was the first guy to put a camera on me. He got me. He's the reason I got to become a pro snowboarder. He was the beginning of it. Michael Corner, my terrain park foreman at Lake Louise. Miniki and Shane at Rude Boys, just for being like, just keeping like punk rock and snowboarding. They're just such good role models. but also very bad role models at the same time. But it's awesome. Ryan Patey, big time. I know, yeah, like I'm so grateful for everything Jenky did for me. Like I got so many life lessons from the guy, and I feel way more equipped now, like as an adult, tackling the world because of the things that he taught me. And Nadia, that was my partner. I learned so much from her, and yeah, she taught me a lot. And big shout outs to her and to my mom. My mom's fucking legend, man. Like supported whatever I did, gave me the confidence that I could do anything. It's epic. And my little bro, I fucking miss you, Josh, if you watch this.
What up,
Get
Josh?
here, man.
Yeah, get there. Come back to Bali,
Yeah.
bro.
I probably missed a bunch of people. Sorry, but
whatever. Those were the important ones.
yeah,
You already shouted out David and everybody else. So
yeah.
a lot of those people.
Well, thank you, Sansalone, for everything you did for me, and Rube for giving me a painting job.
Rube's the best person in the world.
Thank you, Rube. He's awesome, man. Just a light in everybody's day he comes into.
Yeah, I seriously love that,
All
dude.
right.
Been a long one. Thanks for joining, everybody. And
right.
yeah, sorry about the cuts, but we got some Wi-Fi issues. Thanks again, Kev. Peace.
Thank you, Joe. It was a pleasure, man.
Peace, bro. Love you.